Hi everyone, and welcome to podcast number 10 of Triple Cross Cinema. So today, me and Whooper are doing the Golden Classics Hollywood, the classic Golden Hollywood, which is like in the way back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. So we got like three films from technically from three different decades.
Yeah, but only just barely. Like when you say 30s, 40s, and 50s, it
Yep,
sounds like a 30-year period, but these films actually only stretch through an 11 or 12-year period.
that's right.
So I,
And
not
and they
being
are
particularly knowledgeable about like what the golden age of Hollywood would be, what would you say that it
mhm.
encompasses like 3 decades, or is it mostly just anything
I
that was released between 1939 and 1950, which is the span of these films, or what's the deal?
I would say like the golden Hollywood gonna be around 1940s to through 1950s.
Okay, so more like a 20-year period, kind of.
Yeah, that's right. And this one are certainly like three of the most popular films at the era, and even now they are still considered like very popular, consider their age.
Right.
So we got three films: Gone with the Wind from 1939, Casablanca from 1942, and All About Eve 1950.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we talked about noir films in our previous episode,
Yep.
and All
Mm-hmm.
About Eve really reminded me of Sunset Boulevard, which was produced in the exact same year, or at least released in
That's
the same
right.
year.
That's right. But there's is is it normal like like detective story, and this one isn't that this one is about the theater people and
Yeah, well, Sunset Boulevard
uh,
is all about Hollywood,
that is true. Yes, that is true. Yeah.
and the main character is rather than a detective, he's a writer. He kind of takes on the role of a detective, but he's a screenwriter.
Yep. Yep.
And
That's true.
there are other connections between these films and the ones we talked about on the noir episode. One of them being obviously Humphrey Bogart,
Mm-hmm.
because he was in The Maltese Falcon, and now he's in Casablanca here.
Yeah.
And also,
I was
he's not the only cast member that those films share either. There's Peter Lorre and who plays the heavyset guy? I think I wrote his name down somewhere.
no
Sidney Greenstreet.
no. All right.
He plays Ferrari
Yep.
in Casablanca, who's the big guy who buys Rick's Cafe towards the end.
All right. Yep.
He also plays the antagonist in The Maltese Falcon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I just noted I've seen very few old films, So to me, I'm just making these connections for the first time, and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. So
Yep.
those were some of my observations, just comparing the American films that we've seen on this podcast so far,
Yep.
because it hasn't been too many American films, I don't think.
That's right. They are actually we're doing the noir thing, and we're doing the screwball comedies,
Oh yeah,
and now they go to Hollywoods.
right. Yeah, including Gone with the Wind, which was, oh man, it was so long.
It's pretty long, and based from like it the novel itself is really thick as well, from what I remember.
Yeah, I saw that the novel had won the Pulitzer Prize, and that
Oh,
it was written in five, like it's in 5 parts. So, I guess
oh,
it's like an epic novel. It takes place over the course of many years, and
yep.
set against the backdrop of the Civil War and all that. And the book
And
is kind of grand in scope in the same way the war would have been. And so they
yep.
made a long film to match.
Yeah, I can totally feel the long. It's way too long for me actually.
Do you want to start by talking about that one? I guess
Yeah,
we can go in
let's just
chronological
start with
order.
the yeah, that's right. So let's start with the Gone with the Wind. With ironically the earliest one, but the only one that is in colors, in technicolors.
Yeah, I did a little bit of Googling about the Technicolor process. Apparently, you shoot like there are three strips of film that are being processed
Hmm.
that are being shot on simultaneously, and then you overlap them or combine them somehow and put them through some sort of dye and color comes out. Like I can't explain it because I don't understand it. But the color in this film, it
I
almost seems like illustrated. You know,
that
it
exactly,
doesn't
yeah.
seem realistic exactly, and I kind of like the effect, to be honest.
I I like that too, and I also haven't did a research on the technical thing. I don't get it either, so I'm on totally on the same page with you on this. I love the color effect, especially this one and other one that we released the same years, which is
Wizard of Oz.
yeah, that's right.
Hmm.
Also from the same directors,
Oh,
and
is it?
it just looks, yeah, it just looks stunning to me.
I have seen The Wizard of Oz, like snippets of it. I'm not sure I've ever seen the whole film, but I've definitely seen parts of it on TV. When I was a kid, I think
Yeah.
maybe my mom and dad, or maybe I have an uncle who's really into musicals. So he may have sat me down in front of it when I was like, 5 or 6 years old or something. So I have memories of seeing parts of it, I guess. And
Yeah, we we
I
definitely
vaguely
gonna
remember
do
that it is
the
colored somewhat similarly to this film. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think we definitely gonna do the musical one day,
Yeah.
classic musical. So it's on the table.
Right. Well, I mean,
Anyway,
I look forward to it if it kind of has the same look as this film. I really did think. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think there are some shots in Gone with the Wind that are like not it's not just the color that makes it kind of look like an illustration, but the sky. I could swear that there are some shots in this film where there is like a literal gigantic painting, like a mural that is set in front or rather behind like a sound stage or something.
yep,
Uh,
yep, yep, yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if they'd gone to such lengths to capture some of these shots because the sky and I'm not talking about specifically like the sunsets because those I assume that those being such pivotal shots they would construct entire days of shooting around like a particular time and place with everybody the cameras facing a particular way and waiting for the sun to hit the clouds, yada yada yada. But other shots that are a little bit more incidental, um,
Hmm.
it just seems to me that they would have been shot on a stage somewhere, and like I'm talking about like a house-sized painting of the
Hmm. Hmm.
sky, um, set behind whatever stage the actors are working on. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and
Do you know if they
I
did
remember the that
anything like that?
I'm not 100% sure, but I would say that they do that. They do shot a lot of things like on stage. So what we see is like the very big, uh, yeah, like you said. But I think the scene that we can see that the most, or I get that feeling the most, is the one where Red Butler, um, I think, saved Scarlet, and there was a fire,
Yeah.
and then the fire like the red thing just like in the background and look like an illustration to me,
Well,
which is
that
actually pretty cool.
it was cool, and I mean, this may have been like the first film ever to have such a huge set piece, like a pyrotechnics, I guess you would call it, or maybe that wouldn't even be an appropriate term based on how old the technology being used was. I don't know,
Hmm.
but yeah, that would have been pretty amazing, like mind blowing at the time that this film came out. Um, and it was
Yeah,
even now, watching it, it's really really grand in scope.
it's
It's pretty impressive.
yeah, that's right. It's like the technique of the past.
Right.
Like, yeah, I and yeah, and this one feel really epic, like in many sense.
I guess so. It's certainly long. It covers
Yeah,
a long period of time as well. You've got the war as a backdrop, um,
yeah.
and I
I
mean it comes to the
I
forefront of the
I
story multiple times.
yeah.
but I don't
I do.
I don't know.
Yep.
Describing it as an epic, I mean, I guess I'm more accustomed to thinking of, like adventure series or adventure films
Right.
as being epic.
Yep. Right. Do you know more about the context of this world?
Well, I'm an American, so I know probably a little bit more about the American Civil War than you do, for
So
example,
it the
or other non-Americans.
yeah. So it's the fight between the South and North, the
Hmm.
Yankees. What
Right.
is it?
Yeah. The Yankees. That's Yankees. A Yankee is a term for a Northerner that was used by the Southerners, kind of like a
Right.
dirty word.
Yep. Yep. And the South is losing. So it's the Yankee that won the war.
Oh yeah, that's why
All right.
the practice of slavery was outlawed in America, because I
Yep.
think they probably hung on to it for longer than a lot of other developed nations. Like England, for example, outlawed slavery well before America did,
Mhm.
because the South and the American South depended on slavery for their economy. Like they needed or they thought that they needed slaves to pick cotton and crops and things like that.
Yep.
And when President Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, president at the time, was like, okay, time to be done with slavery. The South was like, fuck you, and they went to war, and they lost. Yes.
All right.
So you hear in the film multiple times you hear about a guy named Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what his military rank was. I guess he was a general. He led the Northern forces. You hear about Sherman like coming down through the South, and all the the havoc that was wrecked as a result. That was part of something called Sherman's March, in which he led his troops along the coast of the South, like all the way down the country, basically, and they just like stole. They like looted buildings, stole money, food, burned a
Red
whole
Hat
bunch of
Rock.
stuff to the ground. Yeah, it was like a
Yep.
scorched earth policy, like just burn everything of any value to the south along the coast, and in that way you could completely like disrupt their economy and their way of life,
Yep.
and it was really effective, as
All
you
right.
can see in the film. It completely turns the
Yep.
South upside down, and they get blown the fuck out, and they lose.
Oh, I cannot say that this is like it's not a dirty tactic, but like whatever it was effective. I guess.
Well, I mean, you could call it a dirty tactic, I guess. I mean, it was certainly. I'm not really well versed on the history of warfare, but as far as I'm aware, not a lot of people had used that sort of technique before in like organized war. In guerrilla war, sure, it's like a free for all, every man and battalion and army for themselves, whatever. But in a war that was supposed to be like quote unquote civilized, people didn't do that sort of thing. And Sherman was just like, well, president says, we got the South is our enemy. We gotta destroy their military
Yep.
by any means. So why don't we just burn everything to the ground in a gigantic line as we make our way south through the country? And
Alright.
it worked. I would like the reason I would hesitate to call it a dirty tactic. I mean, you see in the film that it completely like ruins, thousands and like hundreds of thousands of people's lives and stuff. But the practice of slavery, you think of it in those terms, and you're like, well, any sort of tactic in that war, a
Would
war,
have.
yeah, would be justified.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, people in the South obviously did not think that way, and this movie has a very Southern perspective, like extremely so.
That's.
Um,
Yep.
In fact, the movie
Yeah.
even laughs about the idea that like former slaves are going to become free and they can be landowners, and they can take their lives into their own hands.
Yeah, I
Movie kind of laughs at that idea, and that's not exactly a comfortable thought.
yeah, yeah, but I think like it's it can be appropriate because it's based on the point of view of Scarlett O'Hara, which is like a Southern Belle who live like who live like in the rich who like and it's based on the point of view of her. So and her attitude and like people around her. So you know I kind of feel like like that kind of that point of view is extremely one sided, but it's justified.
Um, yeah, I can't. I
Justified is
mean,
the wrong word. It's appropriate.
yeah, appropriate for the film. I know what you mean.
Yep.
I just can't really agree without feeling extremely guilty. Being American and having gone through our school system and learning about the horrors of slavery and
Yep.
just having been taught the way I was taught. And there are plenty of people who would say that like America doesn't do enough in educating its young people about the Civil War and about what it was really fought for and about the experience of African Americans
Yep.
prior to the Civil War, during, and even after. There's more
Like
that could be
even
taught, I'm sure.
yeah, and like even the depiction of the African American in these movies is like is also one sided as well. So
Yeah,
I
it's not
I guess I
good.
feel it. Yeah, right.
Um, don't really know. I mean, I could talk about it for the remainder of the time that we have to talk about this film, to be honest. But I'll just say that it made me pretty uncomfortable. It's not good at all. There's
Yeah.
a scene where, because the film is in two parts. There's an intermission, and
Yep.
so the war is like the divider, basically. As the first half of the film, the first part, I kind of view them as two movies in my head, to be honest, just because of their length. But as the first half of the film is like drawing to a close, that's when the war is at like its height, in terms of its
Yep.
depiction on screen. So then, it's obvious that the South are losing. Then, bam, we got our intermission, and then shortly after that, once the action, I guess, so to speak, is kind of congregated around Tara, the plantation,
Hmm. Yep.
because soldiers are coming there after Scarlett helps to get the place back on its feet and running. And what's his face? The guy that she's in love with throughout the entire film. What's his name? Starts with
Oh,
an A, I
uh,
think.
uh, Brett Butler.
No, the other guy.
Oh, Ashley. Sorry,
Yeah,
Ashley.
Ashley. Ashley eventually makes his way back to Tara, and then there's a scene between he and Scarlett where he says that, and I mean, I'm gonna quote this directly, even though I don't feel good about it. He says he misses the high, soft Negro laughter from the quarters.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. I
that just
remember that
paints
scene.
such a like an idyllic picture of what life was like for slaves, human beings owned by other human beings, like their high, soft laughter coming from their quarters, which they're confined to. Honestly, it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but that's just the one example that I want to bring up because I heard that and I was like, oh no, don't say that.
yeah, it's a product of its time.
Well, I mean, the film was made long after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued.
Yep.
So slavery had been officially outlawed in the U.S. for many years before this film came out. But I mean, the civil rights movement came out. The civil rights movement happened long after this film, and even now, even today, you ask Americans whether there's racial equality in the country. A lot of them are going to say no. Um, so it's a real mess. It's a real complicated issue, and the film is definitely on one side of it, I think.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. But it.
it's a
All
landmark,
right.
and
I would say that it's all like the context of the films, but I think the main plot, the main thread of the film is actually a love stories, uh, a star-crossed love stories between Scarlett, Prep Butlers, and yeah, just the two of them. As Scarlett just like keep marrying and being a widows.
well, don't you think that the
I
star-crossed love in the film is actually between her and Ashley? Because they're the ones who are
no.
never able to like consummate their love.
I would say that it the same with Scarlett and Pratt as well.
Um, I mean,
But I
I don't
can see
think
your
I
point.
agree.
Yes.
I don't
All
agree.
right.
She definitely like is in love with Rhett. At multiple points in the
Yeah.
film, you understand that he is obviously taken with her. He says as much to her like the very first time that he meets her, when he's hiding in that room as she's confessing her love to Ashley, and then she throws the vase at the at the
Yeah.
wall, and he pops up
At
from
him.
behind the sofa. He tells her that he fancies her like right then and there, and
Yep.
he eventually is married to her, and they have a kid, and their marriage goes south because he's abusive and she is I don't know, she's like she wants to
she's still
deny
thinking of.
herself. Yeah, she's still thinking of
Yeah.
Ashley, but I think there's something in her character that makes her want to deny herself happiness.
Yeah.
um she's just like completely
She basically.
restless, and
Yeah.
she doesn't want to like stay settled with anyone or in any particular like position.
Yeah. Yeah. But she basically told him that she doesn't want to have another children, which is to say that she doesn't want to like sleep with him, have sex with him.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean,
Yeah.
you can
Well.
have sex with somebody without having a child. I don't know when contraceptives, like modern contraceptives, were
Yeah.
invented, actually, but I
Yeah.
assume that they didn't exist at this point. But even so, like just because you sleep with someone does not mean. I mean, there are things you can do to prevent it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well.
but she just doesn't want to have another kid with him because that's another means, like that's another thing that would tie her to him, and she doesn't want that because she claims not to love him.
Hmm. Hmm.
But no,
Yeah.
I mean I wouldn't say that this like the main thread of this film is her and Rhett Butler.
Hmm.
I think mostly it's just about Scarlett. All the men, like there's Scarlett, and she's surrounded by men throughout the whole film, and
Hmm.
she feels like pulled between them, caught between them. Um, but it's mostly about her and like all of her stupid choices.
Well, I would say that like when it comes to romance, she a bad person to like to choose between like she didn't know the man whom she loved, but there also like another story about her going back to Taras and see how it was deserted. So she wanted to like to really uh build it, like to really like build a business out of it, build
Right.
a strong Taras, and I love that side of her.
Yeah, I really did like the scene, that wraps up the first half of the film,
Yep, yep, yep.
where she,
The soil.
she runs out into the fields, and she finds like a radish or a yam or something, and of course you
Hmm.
can't eat it because it's like hard as a rock in
Yep.
that state. You have to boil it first or something. But she tries to eat it because she's so hungry. She's like starving to death probably, or
Yeah.
close to it at that point, and she's frustrated, and so she gets up, she clenches her fist and says, "I will never go hungry again. If I have to lie, cheat, steal, or kill, I'll do anything, but I'll never be hungry again.
Yep.
It's pretty badass, honestly. Like how much determination she displays in that moment.
And she did kill someone. She did kill a intruder.
That's true.
So
Yeah, a Union soldier. Yeah, so he would have been a Northerner.
yeah.
That's true. She killed him, and then Melanie, who is like the the virtuous figure throughout the entire movie,
Yeah.
who continually defends and loves Scarlett, even though Scarlett is really not worth defending or arguably loving at many points throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Melanie, who is the saint, is like, check his pockets. What has he got on him? Let's take a look.
Yeah, I would say that her role is most basically plain throughout the movies, but because she act at the foil to Scarlett, it actually like sometime I can see the spark between them, and how like Scarlett needed someone like this in her life.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the relationship between in the third film here, All About Eve, between Margot, who would be
right.
like the Scarlet type character, and what's her face?
And
The not Eve, but the
that
wife of the playwright.
yep, Karen.
Who's okay? Yeah, Karen. Karen would be the Melanie of that film.
Yep.
That's kind of a
And
good dynamic, to have two characters. I mean, be they female or male or whatever, or neither of the above. Just to have one character who's like the impulsive one and who's selfish, and then you have somebody to balance that out and who's like a little bit more conventionally moral, I guess. That's pretty entertaining, and you can build a good arc for both of those characters out of the way that they like occupy scenes together.
Yeah, and God bless her, the actress who played Melanie, Olivia de Havilland. She just passed away 2 years ago, and she was 104 years old.
You kidding?
So she lived a long life. Yeah.
Wow.
Consider that this film is let's say 83 years ago.
Yes, it would be 83 years ago. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Jeez.
amazing. She lived to be
That's
104.
amazing.
Wow. I'm surprised that the making of this film didn't shave off those, last 4 years of her life. It was probably a lot of work. And I mean, they made films so quickly back in the day. Like the studio system was set up to just churn out film after film after film. Now I assume this one was like a minor exception. This one probably just based on the fact that it's shot in Technicolor, maybe, and that it's like a period piece, and that it was longer, double the length of the average film from back then. All those things would have made the production time, larger than average. But I bet there was still like deadlines bearing down on the director and the producers the entire time.
So you I always tell you that like movies is tied to their directors.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
it's more like it's more like the director vision that decide the tone and the look of the movies. This one is more about the producer. It's the producer David O. Selznick, who wanted to make the movie, and he had to fight and hire and rehire like 3 different directors for this one. And with Victor Fleming, the director, being the last.
Right.
And
he directed The Wizard of Oz as well.
That's right. And then it also from because they fired other directors, and he had to step in as well.
Oh.
Yep.
Well,
And
I guess I don't know. Maybe Fleming was like, he worked with a particular cinematographer, like they came as a set, and that's why both films are in Technicolor and both have a similar look. There are some directors who work exclusively with like one cinematographer. Maybe that was the case here. I don't know.
yeah, but I think that explains why the film. Look to me now, there are some of the scenes that look really expensive. Like I remember the scene where Scarlett go through like the hundreds of like of patients.
Wounded men who are laid along the railroad
That
tracks.
that's right. It
Yep.
just looked so big, so huge.
Yeah. Yeah, there were several scenes in this film where I thought to myself as I was watching, like, this has to have just made people's minds, like their brains, leak out of their ears. The stuff that they were seeing on
Yep.
screen, probably for the first time in history.
Yep.
Shots like that one. The the party scene where they're celebrating Ashley's engagement. It's a barbecue. That's like at the very beginning of the film. The question is, who is Scarlett gonna like take to the barbecue? Everybody's all the men who have fallen in love with her are obsessed over the answer to that question, whereas she just loves Ashley and she wants to prevent his engagement to Melanie from being announced. That
Yep.
barbecue
Yep. Yep.
scene,
Yep.
there are some shots in that scene where like the number of extras and the amount of action on the lawn where everyone is eating and you know conversing and celebrating and everything, really elaborately laid out. They kind of reminded me of like a smaller version of the wedding scene that opens The Godfather,
Right.
which,
Right.
which
Right.
is a scene that I really love. I just, in
Yep.
general, I love. In fact, the whole Godfather trilogy, all my favorite scenes in that trilogy are like big social
In the first one.
gatherings.
Right. Right. Yep.
Yeah. So in this film,
Well.
scenes like that one, and also the fundraiser where everyone is there's dancing, and Scarlett's in
Yep.
mourning because her first husband has died,
Yep.
and she's selling stuff to try to raise funds for the Southern troops. Like the
And she
dancing
nominate
scenes.
her yeah, and she nominate her rings
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
cause.
she donates it. Yeah, and that's where Rhett Butler like kind of enters the scene. Obviously
Yeah.
we meet him before that, but that's where he makes a legitimate play at like wooing Scarlett a little bit, or at the very least impressing her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and she dances in her mourning outfit.
Yeah, that really badass of hers. But yeah, we have this is like that basically just like sweep me away. But on the other spectrum, we have like scenes is like where like the slabs whenever they have like the slab the people get thrown out of their horses, and like even the shooting scene it just look kind of dirty to me.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I think there are some parts of this film that are like unintentional comedy masterpieces. Most of them
Masterpieces.
being the scenes that you just alluded to, like where
Yep.
her dad gets thrown off of his horse as he's riding after, I don't know, I forget exactly who, like a Union soldier guy or somebody.
Yeah, I think
He's riding it and he
that's
gets thrown from
one
his
of the
horse and
guy.
dies.
That's right. I think that's one of the guy who wanted to take over the terrace. Or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was also a plantation owner. He owned like a rival plantation or
Right.
something, and he wanted to make an offer and buy the
Yeah.
land. Yeah. And there was like it was obvious that there was some discrimination there because the O'Haras are Irish. They're of Irish descent.
Mhm.
And he kind of made reference to that. The guy who was trying to buy the plantation, he made reference to that,
Yeah.
kind of snidely, I guess.
Mhm.
But there's that scene where her dad died. Like he gets thrown off of his horse, and then cut to his tombstone,
Yep. Yep.
and then
I think that the
go
very
ahead.
same thing happened to Scarlett and Gret's daughter as well.
Yes,
So
Bonnie.
they have bodies. They have that
Yeah,
scene where she run the horse. She died the same way, and the very next scene cut to her tombstone.
yeah. And there's also the scene where earlier you said that Scarlett, she didn't want to have another child with Rhett. Um,
Yep.
so the scene where she tells him that, he says, "Well, maybe you'll get lucky and have a miscarriage," which is obviously like a horrible
Yep.
thing to say. So she like kind of lunges at him a little bit and then falls down the stairs And then you
Yeah, yeah,
realize in the next scene that she's lost the child. I mean, it's horrible for me to laugh at that, but just the timing of it is.
yeah,
Imagine that
yeah,
happening in a film today. You'd be like, "Oh, give me a break." It's
yeah. Yeah, I think we have the very same reaction with the Fountain Malcolm whenever it's come to like uh the slap like all the fighting in there. Remember that
oh, in the
scene
Maltese
where
Falcon.
yeah in the Multi Falcon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
It's
the
the
same.
choreography was not. It
Yep,
wasn't there. You know
that's right.
that would come later.
You know, well. So talking about the performances,
Yeah.
I feel that Scarlett O'Hara's actress, which is Vivian Lane. She pretty famous. She's totally like embody the characters. Red Butlers, I kind of feel like love and hate this character. So I think that is intentional. So the performance of Clark Gable is like for me it's on point. But I want to bring attention to Ashley, who I feel like the performance is really bad. It's really plain.
Um, I can understand that perspective. I didn't think he was that bad. I mean, he certainly wouldn't be anyone's favorite character. Um, but I didn't mind that, I guess. I mean, the fact that his performance is a little bit weaker actually sort of works in the film's favor, because it makes her connection to Rhett that much more pronounced.
Right.
Like if Ashley is, like a paragon of masculinity and like presence and all that, then Rhett is not as impressive by contrast, I guess. And the fact that Scarlett is pining away for this guy throughout the entire film is likely to overpower the story itself. Um,
Mhm.
Whereas this way, with him, not uh, having that much screen presence, I guess, um, that can be allowed to work in the background and just come to the forefront only when the story requires it. So I guess what I'm saying is I guess I agree that it wasn't a good performance, but I also don't think the film really called for it to be a great performance. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's not that good though. Like
Yeah.
you kind of
Like
wonder like why
every
does
scene.
Scarlett like this guy so much? But
Exactly. Yes.
I think it's because both he and Scarlett have a similar, like Rhett is always talking about the fact that he and Scarlett are so similar throughout the whole film. Like
Mhm.
we both don't have any scruples and we'll do whatever we want to get our way, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
But from the very beginning of the film, Scarlett is like she doesn't want people discussing war or politics or anything. She just wants to enjoy her life, and Ashley is exactly the same way. Like during the meeting between all the guys, when the girls are upstairs taking a mid party nap, which I thought was so weird. All the guys are downstairs talking about the war, and Ashley is like, "No, I'll fight for my country because I love the South, but war is nothing to be excited about. War is like horrible, and it's the cause of most misery in the history of humanity." He just wants to have like a comfortable life hanging out in the South and
Yeah.
I don't know,
It,
listening to the
enjoy.
high laughter coming from the quarters.
That's right. That's right. That's
So
right.
he and Scarlett are kind of similar in that way. Like Scarlett becomes ruthless and hard-hearted as a result of all the terrible, you know, stuff that she has to go through. Like all the course of her life
Yep.
makes her that way, and so it makes her kind of suited to be with Rhett. But I think
Yep.
in her heart, she's probably more like Ashley.
Yep. Yeah. I mean they come up from the same like the same society, the same you know uh place of origin. So I would reckon that they have more thing in common than considered to her and Red.
Yeah. And the fact that her and Rhett do end up being similar, like she ends up becoming more like him, is not a good thing, because their relationship is completely tempestuous. He's abusive, she is hateful, and it doesn't work out for either of them.
Yeah, so the best way for it is to friendly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Yeah, well, I didn't like. I realized after he'd said that, oh, that's the line, but
Yep.
I don't know. I didn't really feel it was such an amazing scene. By that point, I guess I was viewing the film kind of as an unintentional comedy. Like the closer we got to the end, the more I was like, this is just completely melodramatic and goofy.
Yeah, that's true.
So when he said that, I was like, oh, okay, he's leaving, and the film is going to end shortly, and this 4-hour behemoth will be over.
Yep. So I be frank. Out of the three films, I think this is the one where I enjoy it the least. I feel like the production itself is really good. It's huge. It on the scope, on the scale. That's something that you don't see much today. But at the same time, the story itself is not that good. I like Scarlett the characters, and I like uh oh like on the interaction between her and Red Butler, especially towards the first half. But yeah, the story itself is actually pretty weak, and it also kind of promotes the slaveism that
Yeah,
that is
it
pretty
like
weird.
glorifies the Southern cause,
Yeah, that's right.
which was not a cause, not a cause worth fighting for, because the cause was, let's keep owning slaves.
Yep.
Let's just keep that happening. Um, yeah, that's definitely a strike against the film, and I think the more we move forward into history and away from
Yep.
the time in which this film was created, and especially the time period that it depicts,
Mhm.
the legacy of this film will gradually be diminished.
Mhm.
I think it's starting to happen already,
Yep.
and there's a small part of me that is like, oh man, it's really too bad that films that were made in certain contexts will, that people will think less of them as time goes on because everybody's values shift. But I mean, the question of whether human beings should own other human beings, um, you know, under threat of like torture and murder, which is the only way that slavery worked as an institution. Like people are not going to consent to that unless you threaten to kill them. Um,
Yep.
that is like such a cut and dried thing that I think it kind of makes sense that this film will slowly, its reputation will slowly die.
Yeah. Well, I still think that it's popular, but I remember like just a few years ago, like that another backlash against this film, including I think in regard to the slavery depiction.
Well, it was probably in the after the death of George Floyd here in America.
Maybe yeah. Yep.
That's when a lot of like streaming services were pulling films that were not like racially sensitive. Um, yeah, stuff like that. Whenever I don't know, whenever something happens, something pops up in the news, and it understandably people are outraged by it. They need to do something with that anger, and that was one of the ways that those feelings manifested themselves. I think was in their response by companies
Yeah.
in taking down some of their films and television shows and whatever else. And I mean, I don't know. It's people will feel the way they feel, and companies will respond to those feelings in whatever way they deem. I mean, profitable most likely. That's what looking for is to maximize profits. That's what any company does.
Mhm.
Now, would it be better if it was a completely like moral and heartfelt decision on their part, and a completely clear-headed decision on the part of everybody who's outraged? Sure, that'd be great, but human beings, they don't operate that way.
Yeah.
And at the end of the
Alrighty.
day, I think this film will slowly. Yeah, you're right. It's popular, but I think its popularity will fall off slowly but surely.
Mm.
But it'll always have there's no way that appreciation for this film will ever die out completely. Like, it's always going to have some sort of following, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people who love romance will fall for this.
Like people
People
who
who
love
love,
tragic romance, right?
yeah, like this or Titanic. It's also the same kind of like tragic romance.
I was actually thinking about that. I was comparing this film to Titanic in my head as I was trying to get my thoughts together about it. Like, it really does seem
Right.
to be that sort of massive like event film,
Yeah.
with a doomed romance at the center. Yeah, it does seem to have been like the Titanic of its era. So it makes sense that it does
Yeah.
still have that following, because I'm sure Titanic also, like 200, 300 years from now, people will still care about Titanic.
Yeah, I do agree, and I have the same criticism with Gone with the Wind as I have the same with Titanic. Like I like the characters. I don't like the stories.
I've seen Titanic. It's been a long time. Um, I thought I guess I don't know. I think the story was fine. It does feel a little bit empty. Like the next day, 24 hours after you've seen it, you think back on it and you're like you remember moments, but you don't remember kind of the sweep of the whole thing. But I kind of think of most movies that way to begin with.
Yeah. All right.
Like, I just remember moments. This film had some moments, but it's my least favorite of the three, same as you.
Right. All right. You want to get to Casablanca, the White House?
Sure. Yep. It is. Yeah.
So,
It is called the White House.
yep, another romantic drama.
Yeah, with another doomed romance.
That's right. And this one we get like another side of Humphrey Bogart, or is he like? Do
Yeah,
you
or
like his
is it another
performance
side?
in these movies?
Or is he playing the same kind of smarmy, talking out of the side of his mouth character as he does in, I would assume, many, many of his films, which is how he got to be so famous for playing a
Yeah,
type.
he, yeah, that his screen personality. Because I
Yeah.
think like all of his movies, he just play kind of the same role, which is Humphrey Bogart in real life. I think.
There's probably a documentary on him, where you could, where the director, I guess, of the documentary, the filmmaker, would offer like an opinion on that question. Was he
Yeah.
just playing himself? I think all actors play themselves to some degree.
I certainly agree with you on that. Like Brad Pitt, he basically play the same role. Even George Clooney, he doesn't do accents. I think he said that when he was young. I don't do accents because he just have like his one signature of voice.
Yeah. I mean, if you're handsome, you can get away with just playing yourself, because that's all people want from you, is just to be like beautiful.
Yep, yep.
But
How
that's
about
not
his
not
performance in
exactly fair,
Casablanca?
because let's talk about Casablanca. Um, what was your question? What did I think of it?
Yeah, how do you like his performance this time? Is that still the same as the Maltese Falcon?
I mean, I don't think his performance is that much different from the Maltese Falcon. I just think the film is better around him.
Yep,
As a result, his
yep,
performance, feels better, because his character is, better written, and the plot in which his character is involved is more involving. Uh,
yep.
I think the performance is good.
Uh,
Um,
uh,
isn't it? I don't
I
know. I don't think he's great at acting drunk. You know
All
the
right.
scene where he gets really drunk because he's seen Ilsa, and then she requests that Sam play as time goes by, uh, and he says to Sam, "Play it. If she can handle it, so can I." Like I don't think that
Yep.
he's really
All
convincing.
right.
He's not a convincing drunk.
All right. That's it. Interesting for you to say because I think later on he is known to play like uh, a drunk characters in a later film that people say that this is one of his best performance.
And what's that?
I think in a lonely place. I think
In
when
a
he
lovely
played like
place.
a in a lonely place,
Ah.
and it released the same years as All About Eve as well.
Hmm.
Let's have a
Well,
quick look. Okay,
I'm not a big
back to
drinker,
Casablanca.
so I'm probably not the best judge of whether someone's a convincing drunk or not. I was just weighing his performance. Is it Bette Davis or Betty Davis?
Betty Davis.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, Betty Davis acting drunk in as Margot Channing in All About
It's
Eve.
more convincing.
Way more convincing
Yeah, yeah,
than Bogart in Casablanca. But anyway,
yeah.
I'm talking about
All
just a
right.
few minutes of the film here. Um,
Yeah.
he just
All right.
does his thing and it's
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Yep. So, whereas I consider the Gone with the Wind is like the success of the producer, for Casablanca, I think it's the success of the writers that make these films,
The
because
writers?
the writers and for it's actually very interesting because they have like three or four different writers up for Casablanca and up until like the very end they themselves don't even know how to end this. So like on the very last few days of the shooting, they just like kind of write the ending on spot, and this is what we get. And I just feel that the ending itself tie up everything very nicely. So I just love the writing for Casablanca.
The ending it's where he double crosses everybody and then double crosses them again, right?
And
Like
he
first
even
he
he even double crossed himself because that at one point I think that he gonna take a ticket to uh with uh with his love to America, and then he decided not to do that
I think he probably makes up his mind not to do that when he has the conversation with what's the guy's name?
with her with
No, not with
what the
Ilsa.
guy named
Yeah,
Victor
Laszlo. When he has the
Laszlo.
conversation with Laszlo, and Laszlo kind of says to him, as other characters throughout the film say to him, that they like think that he has a sentimental side, or that
Yeah.
he's on the side of good, you know,
Hmm.
because what's his face, Captain Renault, he says that to him very early in the film, and then Laszlo kind of underscores it when the two of them have their like extended conversation close to the end. But Laszlo, I think, gets to him a lot more effectively. I think that's the moment when he decides that he's going to give Laszlo the ticket, because Laszlo like inspires him to pick up the cause again. He sells his bar.
Yeah.
He lets the woman that he loves go off to America without him, so he has nothing left except to rejoin the fight.
Yep. Yep.
So I think even at that
Oof.
point he had made up his mind to like re-enter the war effort, like in his own way,
Yep.
But the way that he does it is, it kind of makes sense to me that you would say that they wrote the ending last minute, because the ending is a little bit strange. Like
Really?
first he takes Renault at gunpoint. No,
Yep.
he says to Renault, "We're gonna
He,
trap Laszlo and
yeah.
Ilsa, and we're gonna turn him over to the Nazis." And then, as
Yep.
Renault is about to make the phone call, he points a gun at him, and he's like,
Yep.
"No, you see, we're not doing that, and we're going to the airport." And then they go to the airport, and then Renault calls the Nazi guy, whose name I can't remember, and
Yep.
so the Nazi guy comes and he arrives just in time for Rick to turn his gun on him and shoot him. I don't know. It just
Yeah.
seemed like he was just pointing his gun at everybody, and it just worked out in
You know,
the end.
until the plane flight, until the plane goes up,
Yeah. He's just going to keep
everyone
pointing his
stay.
gun at whoever's most threatening and just like fooling everybody until the plane is in the air. It's satisfying. The ending is satisfying, because there's that final line. I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, which is, to me, that's an even better line than "We'll always have Paris." "We'll always have Paris" is great,
Yep.
because it's like an iconic way of letting go of like this beautiful woman who love more than anything. You're going to
Yep.
choose to remember like a specific moment in time that you had together, and you're going to cherish that. And that kind of gives you the strength to let her go. It's great. But I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. It's just so, I don't know.
Yep.
There's like an indefinable quality about that line that I love.
Yep.
So
I
film
agree.
feels
And,
good. The ending feels good. I just feel like it's a little bit confused.
yeah, I think we mostly get confused based on the trick motivation because we still like right at the end don't really know what he want to do, what he was about to do, and it try a bit hard to like to put us in like the postman of like what he gonna do next.
Well, I think, I believed that he was going to give the tickets to Laszlo and Ilsa. Like I said, ever since, like, from the
Yeah.
moment that he has that conversation with Laszlo. I just think that the film kind of trips once or twice in the process of getting there. I don't know, if I watched the last like 10 or 15 minutes back, I could pause it and be like, you see, that doesn't make like a ton of sense. But I didn't. My notes here that I'm looking at are not that extensive because I just enjoyed watching the film,
Yep.
So I wasn't pausing it all the time or taking tons of screen
I
caps or anything.
Yeah, but at the same time, I do feel that the movie does take a while for the main plot to really kick in. So I think at
That's
first
true
we
because
get.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just want to elaborate on that. So at first we just like, get a point of view of like Casablanca as a place, as like the place where that people get stuck there, like all the foreigners, and then we get into like uh the cafe itself, the club that Rick runs, and then we get introduced to Rick, and then we get introduced to the two tickets that he like that he owe before his love arrive.
But we learn about the tickets even before we learn about Rick or his cafe. We
Yep,
see
that's
we
right.
see those
Yep,
shots
correct.
in the streets of Casablanca where the cops are like trying to track down whoever has the tickets. They're like rounding up all the
Yeah.
usual suspects, quote unquote. That's what Renault calls them.
Yep.
They're just trying to like raise hell and see who pops out because they want to find out who has those tickets.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
the
Yep.
very first thing that we see in the film, there's like an explanation of the route by which people get to Casablanca in their quest to get to Lisbon and then to America. And then, because there's that map of Africa with the little line that follows the route to Casablanca. And then it cuts to Casablanca. We see all the shots of the streets, and then there's all the turmoil with the cops and everything. And only then does the camera move into the cafe. So it doesn't focus on Bogart right away, or even Rick's Cafe right away. It takes its time getting there, and like on a first watch, this is actually my second time seeing this film. On a first watch, you're like, especially as a modern moviegoer, you're like a little bit impatient. You're like, where's the protagonist?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to care about right now? I don't know. But you just have to have a little bit of patience with it, and then the way that it sets up the way that the cafe operates before we see the man behind it all, I think is great. Like all the different little miniature scenes between two, like there'll be two people sitting at a table. One woman is trying to sell off some diamonds so she can afford to get like, airfare to Lisbon or something, and then there'll be other people like doing surreptitious kind of backroom deals where they're selling, I don't know, weapons or something else. I don't know.
Yep.
And it just cuts between like 3 or 4 of those little individual scenes. You realize the kind of stuff that goes on here. It's cool. Like the atmosphere of the place is established really well by those scenes, I think.
Yep. And then I love that the way that they introduce Rick as well, like you said. So they've been talking about like, can Rick come to the tables, and the waiter just kind of like like he doesn't sit with the customers. That's
Right.
its rules. And then later, and then right the next scene we see that like the man behind behind this the scene who like I think he signed off his signature first before we get the full review of his face.
Right. Yeah, it kind of makes him
that was a good
into like a
introduction.
powerful figure. The fact that we see him first, we see his hand authorizing something on a check, like giving his permission, and then it pans up to his face, so that when you eventually see him, you understand this. He's the man at the top. He's the man behind everything. But even somebody of his status in Casablanca, you come to find out later, is nothing, or rather feels like he's nothing without the woman that he loves.
Yep.
So first, his character is like established as someone very, very powerful, and then you realize just how dependent he is.
Vulnerable.
Exactly. That's a better word. Thank you. Vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the couple appears and like get him into whatever, and then it actually that's the way that he choose is like it's the end of his privilege, so to speak. So it's like a road to doom as well for him.
Yeah, kind of. Because later on in the film, there's a lot of quotable lines in this film, but one of the ones is the one that I'm thinking of now is of all the gin joints and all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine. Yeah, that definitely has the air of like her reappearance does kind of doom him to like slip back into his old ways, I guess, like boozing and ultimately her reappearance and Laszlo's appearance kind of forces him back into the role of like do-gooder, because he was able to put that on hold when he was the powerful head of Rick's Cafe. He sticks his neck out for nobody. He's the only cause that he believes in. In fact, there was Rhett Butler says almost exactly the same thing in Gone with the Wind. He says, "I believe in Rhett Butler. He's the only cause I know." And in this film, Humphrey Bogart says, "I'm the only cause I'm interested in." They're two very similar characters, but whereas Rhett Butler is just like a scoundrel through and through, Rick has a heart of gold.
That's right.
And it's Ilsa who brings that out of him. At least she's the catalyst for it. I do think that his conversation with Laszlo near the end also has a big impact on him, because he freely, like, he's not the sort of person who will excessively flatter or compliment somebody, but he's Rick is very straightforward during that conversation. Like, you are the guy, you're the hero of this war, at least on this side of the Mediterranean. You're the leader of the resistance. You're somebody, So that's another way. I think the film does a good job of highlighting who has the power in a particular scene.
Yeah.
And that's the fact that he would defer to Laszlo using that sort of language is another way that the movie does that.
And I think the film does well with all the supporting characters as well. The bit that
Yeah.
I remember that I enjoy the most is the Hungarians young husband and wife, where
Mhm.
the wife have to deal with Renault, and I think it's implied that she have to sleep with him in order for him to issue the ticket.
Right. Yeah. Well, she
So
hasn't yet, but she comes to Rick and says, like,
yeah,
how would you
He
feel
just
about that
removes it.
sort of thing? Like hypothetically, as a man, what would your reaction be? Uh,
Yeah,
and what she's
yeah,
also the main reason that she comes to him, I think, is just to ask, is he trustworthy? Like, if I do this, if I have sex with him, will
yeah,
we actually get the tickets?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's the
She,
thing. Like Renault sends her his way, hoping that
yeah,
he'll vouch for him. Like, oh yeah, of course he'll do it. But he's not that fond of Renault. At least not at that point in the film. Not before the
yeah,
beginning of a beautiful friendship.
yeah. I just get the feeling that they know each other too well, like Rick and Renault. So like it's because they know each other too well. They kind of like kind of support each other because they know each other. So I think I do feel that it's a beginning of a beautiful friendship as well.
Yeah, it would be nice
I
to believe
love that.
that.
Love that.
It'd be nice to believe it. I
How,
don't
how
know. I don't know if I do.
how what's your take on the more political scenes? The one where they take turns singing their national songs.
Oh, that might be my favorite scene in the movie.
Right.
Because the film involves so many of its supporting characters up to that point in that one scene. Like that's the scene that kind of connects all of them and kind of forms like
Yeah.
a shared universe between them,
Yeah.
and also connects the film most directly to the conflict that was happening in the real world at that time. So
Yeah.
I think that scene's incredible, because you've got the woman who sings the song. I almost called it an insert song, like from an anime. The woman
Yeah.
who sings the song, I think in French,
Yeah.
earlier in the film, the performer, and
Yeah.
you have even that blonde woman, who it's implied that Rick was involved with her, and then Renault wanted to get together with her as well, and the bartender was flirting with her. Um,
Mhm.
I can't remember what her name is, but she comes in like midway through the film with another guy on her arm, and she like pointedly walks by Rick's table to show him, oh look, I'm with somebody else now. Do you
Yeah.
know the character I'm talking about, the blonde?
Yeah. I, I
Yeah,
I remember her, but I can't recall her name either.
yeah. She in that scene where it's the dueling national anthems, she like very loudly and passionately sings the French national anthem. She's like there's a close up on her face,
Yeah.
as she does it, and her voice rises in the mix like to overpower almost everything else. Even though she has such a small part in the film's story, like her love of her country is highlighted so directly there.
Yeah.
The film just brings in a bunch of other, you know, it brings in a whole
Yeah.
bunch of other characters that it's given only small parts to, and shows that they're all united in this way. It's great.
Yeah. 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 All right. Do you have any other notes on Casablanca?
Um, I mean, we didn't talk much about Ingrid Bergman.
Yep. Uh, the Paris.
Oh, the Paris
They always
scenes,
have Paris.
just yeah.
Yeah. I feel that her performance is very good at this one, but she kind of like still a supporting characters, not the main characters, because this movie is all about Rick and his decision.
Yeah, that's true. And she's just like the one who got away, um,
Yeah, yeah,
whose departure kind of
and
set Rick off like down a different path where he was acting entirely out of self-interest.
Yeah.
But
So
by reappearing, she inspires him to get back on like the side of righteousness.
yeah. I remember even at one point she said like I leave all the decision to you, Rick.
Yeah, she
Because
says you're gonna have to do the thinking for both of us. I can't think anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, that line rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. But I can understand how somebody would be completely overwhelmed in that situation and would just want a decision to be made for them. Like, it doesn't feel good to hear her say that, but it's all right.
Yeah, I do feel that she have a small role compared to Rick, but she did the best on what she have equipment.
Yeah,
From what she have.
I would agree. Plus, even if the role had been complete shit, she's still Ingrid Bergman.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, true,
you know.
true.
I liked her a lot more during the first half of the movie because at that point we didn't know everything about her history with Rick, and she just seemed to have like a little bit more power. She held a few more cards, so to speak.
Yeah.
She was a little bit more of a mystery. So in those, she was one of the most intriguing characters in the film for me during that first half. But once we understand the nature of her relationship with Rick, and there are no more secrets, then she's like between her and Laszlo. Laszlo becomes the more interesting character, I think.
I agree. Yep.
But the guy who played Laszlo doesn't look like she does, so he's not going to be remembered like she will.
Too bad. Too bad. This is the romance between Rick and Isla, and not about Laszlo at all.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm not complaining.
Yep. I love this movie. I enjoy it the most out of the three films. Still enjoy it even now. I mean,
Yeah,
I watch it a whole bunch of time.
This is only my second time seeing it, but I definitely appreciated it more, having seen it once before. You notice new things, and you understand the like the political undertones in the film a little. I mean, I'm entirely ignorant of history because high school for me was 15 years ago, and I've forgotten pretty much everything that I learned about World War II and history in general. But having a previous viewing of this film floating around somewhere in my brain, now this second viewing, I was able to put a few more things together, I think. So that does make it a little bit more rewarding.
Yeah, and surprisingly, like different from Gone with the Wind or All About Eve. This one was made not with the intention to be a classic. So it's just like one of the normal films that like they put out every year, and it just pick up its steam much later on, and it's become like one of the most beloved Hollywood films now.
Yeah, I've read that they there weren't any major expectations for it,
Yeah,
but it's still like won
I
Best
love
Picture
that.
and became a classic and all that.
Yeah,
I mean, that's great.
yeah,
Good for everybody who produced it and worked on it, starred in it, whatever.
yeah.
I
I
hope,
don't know.
they probably didn't get paid as much as they should have.
That's
I mean, many of them were like the stars were overpaid, I'm sure, and the producers were overpaid, and but they would have gotten more if people had known what would happen to this movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, they this movie make a star out of like out of them. So maybe like underpaid, but they have nothing to complain.
Yeah,
People
that's true.
recognize it. Your faces in these movies.
Yep.
Yep. All right, let's get to All About Eve.
Okay. Yep, this
So
definitely reminded me of Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, I agree.
Commentary on fame, performance. you know, well, I guess those two things, among others, but those are like the ways in which it's related to Sunset Boulevard. It's about Broadway instead of Hollywood.
I That's right, and they also have like the voiceovers, like from beginning and the ending, just like Sunset Boulevard as well.
Yeah, the Sunset Boulevard one is like we were talking earlier about whether it, like, what aspects of it are noirish. It doesn't have a detective character, but the Hollywood writer who stars in Sunset Boulevard, does narrate the film as though he were like a hard-boiled sort of character,
Yeah,
like an investigator, But in this film, it's really the voiceover coming from multiple characters, the narration
right.
at the start. Like it begins with Addison's voiceover.
Hmm.
And during the first couple of minutes that he was speaking, I was like, what exactly, like, where's this film going? What am I watching? Because he's giving this unbelievably pretentious speech about how, like, actors basically are, they just need to shut up.
Yeah,
And this guy who is just a blowhard, we don't really need to hear what he has to say.
yeah,
I'm more than sufficient to introduce all the characters in this film. Like, that was the attitude. And I was like,
yeah,
what is
yeah.
happening here? And then it switches to, what did you say her name was? Karen? To Karen's perspective.
Yep, Karen. Yep.
But it's, when the film eventually, like, it freeze frames just as Eve is about to accept the award, and then we watch the film, and then it circles back around to that point.
Yep.
And then it resumes. And when it does that, I realized, oh shit, like, that it was just a perfect decision to have that opening narration coming from Addison, because by the end of the story, he's the character who best understands Eve. So he is the most
Yeah.
qualified to be speaking about what's happening in that scene and to be delivering that narration. So I was like, whoa, they they really knew what they were doing.
Yep. All right. Watching it this time, I feel that the opening and the ending are my favorite part, and that doesn't get into like all the Bette Davis, Margot's performance in there, and I just found that the narration are really witty, and it's just fun to watch all along.
Yeah,
So
it is.
yep,
It's a
I'm a big
very
fan of it.
enjoyable movie. There are a lot of references to plays and playwrights and theaters and things
Yeah,
that
yeah,
are
that's
easy to
true.
miss. For example, I mean, this is probably the most obvious one in the entire movie, but I still had to pause it and go to Wikipedia. It's the scene where Addison is talking to Eve as she's in the other room, and he's
Yep.
suspicious of her background. The story that she's told to everybody about, having no family and her husband dying in the war and everything. So he says, "Oh, what theater did you see Margot at in San Francisco? Was it the Schubert?" And I could tell from his tone that the Schubert wasn't in San Francisco. Like, he was laying a trap for Eve. But still, I paused. I figured this is really important information. Like, I should know this to understand the plot. So I had to pause the movie, go to Wikipedia, type in Schubert Theater, and indeed, it's in New York City. Um,
Right.
but so that was the most obvious and simple reference in the
Yep.
movie. I still needed
But
help.
yeah, but really, like, you have to be in the know to fully understand and appreciate it. So
Yeah, like some of the
like
characters,
this is
especially the
that.
things that Addison has to say, and
Yeah.
Lloyd, I think, is the writer,
Yep. Yeah. That one.
the playwright. Like a bunch of what they have to say to one another, like all the quips and one-liners and things, um, were just like zooming over my head left and right. But I still appreciated how, like, sardonic everyone was being, because all the characters are speaking kind of ironically. Even
Yep.
the people who are, like, up to their necks in which multiple characters say over the course of the film, like, I've had it up to here, or I'm in up to my neck, or I've had it up to my neck. All these characters are up to their necks in the world of show business, and the film's a critique of the world of
Yep.
theater. They all are kind of detached and ironic about it, even though it's their livelihood.
And
They're still like, this guy wasn't great, or it's just another performance. Who cares?
yep, I do think that because this is from the theater. This is set around the theater with all the theater actor and actresses. Their dialogue can be feel a bit more theatrical than natural realism as well. But it's the quality that I find really charming in here, appropriate as well. So
It's
I did
definitely
enjoy the
appropriate
dialogue.
given the film's setting and its subject matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised to learn that this film was not based on a play, because Casablanca was
Yeah,
based on an unpublished play.
yeah.
This
This one I
film
think
is
is the original, based on the story.
right. It's based on a
I
short
know.
story. Yeah. It kind of feels like it was based on a play because it's just characters in rooms talking.
Yep. Yep.
And that's what plays are. But no, it
Right.
it wasn't. So I was surprised to learn that, because yeah, you're right. I mean, it does. Many of the scenes feel very staged. The way that
In a
characters
good
like,
way.
yeah, in a good way. It's that could easily be a detriment to a different film, but because this one is about the theater, the fact that it feels like a play, it's as appropriate as it could possibly be. Um, it's just a really sharp script. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough or knowledgeable enough to keep up with it all the time, but you can follow the story no problem. Just
Yeah.
the nuances of some of the lines will
Uh,
go over your head unless you are ready for them.
uh, and it have a really huge cast, like five, six of them, but they all have their personalities. I enjoy the girls more than the boys, but I can say that like each of them have their own voice and their own like personality in these films.
Yeah, I kind of like. I didn't feel like there was a big Bill and Lloyd, who are the two husbands. Um,
Uh-huh.
I mean, they're both fine characters, but I kind of felt as though they were like the husbands. That was their job,
Right.
and I'm kind of okay with that because in so many Hollywood films, the girl is just the wife or
Yep.
the lover.
Mhm.
So equality, baby. Like, the fact that these guys are just the husbands that's fine. Um, Nevertheless, I don't feel as though a huge distinction was made between their characters. But I think that's just natural because it really was Betty Davis and Ann Baxter's movie.
Yep. Yep.
I'm
I
still
agree.
surprised that you
And
pronounce it Betty, because it looks like Bet
I always
to me.
I always pronounce her as Betty.
Okay, we'll
So
go with that.
maybe, yeah, maybe it's me who wrong, but I always pronounce her as a Betty Davis.
We'll go with it.
All right.
Yeah, it's her movie and it's Eve's movie, and like, because Eve is such a deceptive character, um,
Mhm.
the it just, like, it feels as though the film is giving all of its attention to Margot, and then it will switch. It'll switch and put all of its attention on Eve. Um,
Yep.
and the reason for that is that whenever Eve is involved in scenes where Margot is present, she can't reveal who she really is.
Yep.
So
Yep.
she just has to kind of like blend into the background and accept people's coats and take them up to the coat room and offer to do this, that, and the third. And it's only when she's like alone or with somebody else who she feels like she can make a play on that person, like a power move. That's when the film completely shifts gears, like it's
Yep.
almost a different movie.
Yep.
And then it goes back to Margot for a little bit, and it's
Yep.
interesting. Like, it
I
it manages to make that structure work, which is a difficult thing to do.
Yep. I agree. I really like the way that the script goes. at first we see a Margot feel insecure of the appear like no. At first we see how Margot and everyone in the cast mostly welcome Eve, and you see that Margot start to get insecure because if continue to like gain her place and spread her importance around and basically just mimic Margot as well, and
Yeah.
we feel that it is her Margot insecurity because she reached 40 and because like all of these uh, uh, insecure that she had never feel. So it more like her paranoid instead of what Eve's doing, and then it shift gear into like we see the real side of Eve, and it just paint like another picture altogether of how like a no person try to get into the business and like try to do all their means to do that, even like stepping down other people to do that.
Yeah. Stepping on
So
them.
love
Yeah.
that.
Or stabbing them
Yeah,
in the
stepping on them.
back.
Yeah.
Either one.
Yes, stepping on them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
following Eve and watching like the exact moments that she chooses to, for example, ask Karen if she'll convince her husband to make her the understudy, or like
Yep.
put in a word for her to be the understudy, and then she makes a pass at Bill. She tries to convince Lloyd. I don't think we see her conversation with Lloyd. Lloyd references it when he's talking to Karen, but she tries to convince Lloyd to cast her in I can't remember.
Oh, the
Carrie.
new play,
What is
right?
the name of the other film? Cora.
Uh,
She wants to be cast as Cora in Lloyd's new film, new play. And then there's that bathroom scene or ladies' room, they call it, when the four, Margot and Karen and Bill and Lloyd, they're all eating at the Cub room. And then what was the deal with the ladies' room? When Karen is called away from the table because she gets that note, she goes up the stairs. I guess it's like a powder room where women go to, I don't know,
yeah, maybe.
put on makeup or fix their clothing or even change or do whatever they need to do. But it's not like the restroom, I
Yep,
guess
yep.
maybe upscale places have rooms like that are just dedicated for
For that.
whatever they're for.
Yeah.
But that scene. That's just another example of like Eve picking like an opportune moment to kind of leverage whatever power that she has to achieve her goal, which is to
Yep.
play Cora. They're all really, like you would think that Betty Davis would just steal the entire movie, and she kind of does. But because the Eve scenes are divorced from the Margot scenes, at least when Eve is acting, authentically, and is making those sorts of moves to like improve her station and get their Cora role. I just completely lost my train of thought.
Right.
That's I just really enjoy seeing Ann Baxter like flip that switch.
Yeah. And did you see the young Marilyn Monroe in there?
Yeah, she plays Miss Caswell.
Yep. Yep. Like I
Addison.
didn't
She
even
comes to the
recognize her at
party,
first.
Margot's party with Addison, and he says that she's graduated from the school of the Copacabana, which is another reference that I caught. That's like a sly remark about her having absolutely no acting training or experience.
Right. Wow.
Um,
Right.
And she flames out when she does the test reading with Eve.
Yep.
I wonder if that was like intended as a like meta dig at Marilyn Monroe's acting ability from the film's writer.
Uh,
I wonder
all
if that's
right.
possible.
Because I don't think she that famous at the time.
Well, she was definitely
So
famous, just not as an actress.
right, I didn't know that. I think this is like her first screen appearance as well. I'm not sure of that. And
Wasn't she famous before becoming an actress, like as a model?
I'm not sure of that, but I do know that acting wise, she became famous like 10 years later on,
Ten
or a few years
years?
later on,
Yeah,
a few years,
she may
few
have been
years.
dead by 10 years after this movie. I don't know.
All right, yeah, she died in 1962. All right,
Yeah, so 12 years after
how
this
did she
film,
die?
she took her own life.
So, oh, jeez, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she died from an overdose.
Right, yep. So
But
I
that was
just
still
don't think.
12 years away from this movie.
Yep. Oh, right. So
Still,
she did modeling before. Maybe that's why. Yep.
I think she did, but I'm not a big Marilyn Monroe uh, like trivia master,
Yep. Yep.
and it's not necessary for this film either, because her role is to be like kind of a dumb and untalented character.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, that's right. I love the way that I go back to the beginning again, but I love the way that when if receive an awards that that everyone having like a standing ovation. It's just like the core character who doesn't do that, and at first we don't know what the deal is, and we think that there's like like it's these characters who are against the new one, not the other way around, So
Yeah,
it's
you're led to
so
believe that
I
Margot and Karen, etc.,
yeah,
are
yep,
like they have ill intentions towards Eve, but then you find
yeah,
out
yeah,
no.
that's right. And I think the main message that I really love about if I need to hold up now is that Margot learning to like accept her faded career and just enjoy herself.
Yeah, it's kind of like the antithesis of Sunset Boulevard. Both films I think have negative things to say about like the fame machine that will chew up and spit out 99% of the people who enter into it. But whereas in Sunset Boulevard, that process drives the main character to insanity. In this film, Margot beats the system.
Mhm.
I think that's why I like this film more. Because Margot
Yeah.
she has to grapple with the fact that she's aging and that, man, it really is a lot about the fact that she's aging, isn't it?
Yeah, like she lost her status as well. She's starting to like not a center of attention anymore, and it's hard for her because she had been like a superstar from a young age until now.
Yeah, Addison
So
says that she was a
it's
star
kind
ever
of
since she was 4 years old and she appeared naked on stage as a fairy in a play or something. I was like, what?
yeah. I think it's
It's
like
quite a
one of the
detail.
acting compared from 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 him. But yeah, I do love his narration, and I do love his role in all this.
Yeah, he's an
He
interesting
doesn't play a
character.
really natural. Yeah, but like as he like blackmail Eve into be his possession. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
It just yeah he just like a perfect role, and I think like he said they kind of like deserve each other.
Right. That's kind of the language that Rhett uses to have his way with what's her name, Scarlett.
Yeah, Scarlett.
We belong together. We're two of a kind, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you ever hear a man talking to you like that way, just do a 180 and run in the other direction.
yep, step back.
Especially if he looks like Red Butler with his
Yep.
slick back hair and his weird pancake face and his mustache.
Yep.
I didn't know movie stars ever looked like that at any point in time, but apparently they did.
Right. He did play a Clark Gable. He did play another like romantic growth. Was really famous on that one as well. Before Gone with the Wind.
What's that?
I'm remembering that it happened one night.
It happened one night.
Yeah, it's
What is
like
it?
It. Yep, it happened one night. It's like many people said it's like the very first screwball comedies.
Interesting. Well, he's no Gregory Peck. Not
No.
Gregory Peck. I meant to say Cary Grant. I said Gregory Peck because Gregory Peck is referenced in the script for All About Eve multiple times.
Right. Yes.
They say his name a couple times. Yeah, what I meant to say is he's no Cary Grant. Cary Grant, of course, being famous for screwball comedies.
Yep. I enjoy Cary Grant much better than Gabo as well. Bless their souls.
Are they both? You're saying that because they both passed away?
They both passed away long ago.
Yeah.
I don't think like any of the cast in any of the films that we watch have still living now.
Right. Well, there's probably one person in All About Eve. Maybe not one of the main cast members, but it was made in 1950, so
Yeah.
it's entirely possible somebody's like, 90 years old or something
Right.
who was involved in the making of that film. Because this was 72 years ago. Someone who was 18 on the set of All About Eve could be 90 right now.
Yeah, but not the main cast.
Yeah, maybe not. I did like that. I was saying earlier that I liked that Margot has to reckon with the fact that she's older, and then I failed to come up with any other any other lessons that she would have learned or any other truths that she would have had to process or deal with. Most of it really is about aging, I think, because she's the first. She's not the first character to be suspicious or envious of Eve. That would be Birdie, her friend.
Yep.
She was onto her from the very beginning, but she the basis of her hatred of Eve is mostly the fact that Eve is young and beautiful and I don't know, talented. Maybe she senses that she is a talented actress on some level.
Yep.
And that makes her more threatening.
Yep.
I don't know.
Uh,
But whatever
but-
the case
but-
may be, she gets over. She learns to process and be better than and bigger than that envy and that fear, which is,
Yep.
It feels good to watch a character get over that hump,
Yeah.
especially in
Yeah.
a Hollywood film, because Hollywood is all about youth and beauty.
Yep. And you said that she been insecure about her faith, but I see that it's like a midlife crisis itself, So she being a star, she kind of she tend to overact, but yeah, it really is a midlife crisis, and she get over that, and I think that's great.
Yeah, but it also feels good to watch her be such a huge diva. I mean,
Yeah.
the scene where she says, "Fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night." Well, first she has her martini in hand. She just downs the whole thing in 2 gulps, and then she gets halfway up the stairs and then delivers that line. It's just awesome.
Love it.
And you know what's coming. Because Karen
Yeah.
makes reference to it. I've seen you like this before. Is this the beginning of it or is this the end of it? So all the characters already, just at the very beginning of Margot beginning to act out and start the process of getting drunk and telling everybody, how much they suck and what she really thinks of them. She's a character in a film. We don't know her, and we can only suspect what she's about to do. But all the characters in the film and on the page already understand it, which I think is a beautiful piece of writing. You almost can't wait for her to be a huge bitch, because
yeah,
all the other characters are like, well, here we go again.
yeah.
And it's
She
great.
acted up
Like,
again.
yeah, her throwing everybody's lines back in their face and everything. Oh man, the scene where she's confronting Bill and Lloyd and Max being the producer, I
Yeah.
guess. Where she like storms in after Eve has done her reading with Marilyn Monroe's character, Miss Caswell.
Yep, yep, yep.
And she pretends not to know that that's happened and that she's like caught everybody in the act. And the shouting match that she gets into with everybody, it's just fantastic.
I agree with you. So, yep. So many things to enjoy here. Like I enjoy almost all the dialogue in these films. It have a really sharp direction. The screenplay is sharp as well. So there's a lot to enjoy. It's just like sometimes we don't know enough. We're not in the know enough to like, understand all the references.
Yeah,
Definitely,
that's
I
true, but
enjoyed
I think
this
the
movie
film
more than
carries you
season one.
along. The film carries you
Yeah,
along in
yeah, yeah.
spite of
It
that.
does.
Like if you don't understand
Yeah,
everything
it does.
that it has to say, you still you like the characters, and it moves you. It has like a brisk pace without being like super fast talking. Like this isn't
Yeah.
what was that film that we watched, the noir with the female reporter.
The female reporter noir. The female
Yeah,
reporter.
yeah,
Hold
one of
on.
the three
Oh, right, right,
noir
right,
films we
right.
watched.
His Girl Friday. No, it's not noir.
Yeah,
His Girl Friday.
yeah. So this film has like a really quick pace, like a snappy pace, but the characters don't talk like the characters in His Girl Friday. Like it doesn't need to
Yeah.
rely on that sort of like warp speed dialogue in order to be snappy. It can do it without that, which I think is good.
Even like the very bit at the end where Eve encounters Phoebe, who will play
Right.
a role as like Eve, with and I think Eve doesn't aware of that, or she's just aware of that, but she accepting that. I think it opened up to many like interpretation, and it just it's just good.
I think, I mean, I only had one interpretation of that scene, and that's like, it's kind of one of circuity, I guess. Like Phoebe is the new Eve. She's
Yeah,
a young
yeah,
girl obsessed with an actress, obsessed with fame in general. Um, she holds up or she tries on like a particular piece of clothing of Eve's the same way that Eve held up Margot's gown in front of her and was posing with it earlier in the film. It's
yeah.
just
But
it's more commentary on like the Broadway machine,
the
the Hollywood
circle,
machine. Uh,
yeah, the
just
circle
just
never ends.
yeah, basically like this is another young woman who wants to be a star, and maybe she'll make it, maybe she won't. But either way, she's going to be part of a system that is designed to like grind up most of the people who enter into it.
Yeah,
And
but
I think the
does
very last
Eve
shot with
aware
her
of that?
image refracted in the mirror a million times is meant to signify the fact that there are so many more girls like her.
Yep. But does Eve aware of that?
Is Eve aware of what? That she
Uh,
snuck into her house because she's
Aware
obsessed with her and that she wants to be famous?
to be a new her.
Well, I
So
mean, it's not as.
is
Do
that
you
the
think
point?
that she wants
Like
to like steal her identity?
I just feel like I just wonder whether if uh, aware of that girl gonna be replace her, not in terms of identity, but like take all her role and becomes like what if did to the others. uh does she know of that, or she know and then she just kind of accepting it?
Oh, I see. So
Because
you're thinking about like
yeah,
what Eve's viewpoint or her opinion of
right.
the girl
Oh,
and what her motivations may be.
yeah, yeah,
Um, she's depicted as being exhausted in that scene. Like she flops back on the couch and she accepts a drink
yeah,
from Phoebe after she
yeah,
prepares it for her. Um,
yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say whether Eve
Yeah,
is like suspecting that this girl might do to her what Eve did to Margot.
that's right.
Um, and Addison comes up. He's the one who delivers the. She lies and says that it was the taxi driver who brought the award up, but it was actually Addison. Addison is the one who, like, bears witness to the fact that the cycle is continuing.
Yeah,
So I think the film may be saying that it's people like Addison who enable it to, like, they perpetuate the Broadway cycle, the Hollywood cycle. You know, they're the ones who perhaps understand it best and still seek to profit from it.
hmm hmm yep.
So I would
Just
suspect that Eve, I don't know. I don't think that she thinks like I need to be wary of this girl. She's just too tired. Like her soul has been sucked out by having to like get up on stage and accept the award and lie through her teeth about her friends having supported her and stuff. She's vulnerable, I think. Too vulnerable to like be on her guard against whatever Phoebe has in
yes,
store for her.
right, right. All right. So I do say that out of like the three films, only Gone with the Wind has not aged very well to me because some of the message that like that feel a bit iffy today. But Casablanca and Oh How If they are still really good to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree in a broad sense. Gone with the Wind is, yeah, it hasn't aged very well in a social or moral uh, you know, context. Through those lenses, it hasn't aged well at all, but it's amazing to look at.
That's true. Yeah.
Um, it's aged well in that respect, at
And the
least.
performance are really good. Of the performance of Scarlett O'Hara of
Right.
Vivian.
Yeah, performances
Great.
are good, Ashley notwithstanding.
That's true.
uh, yeah, the performances are pretty good, and I mean, the story is pretty. I don't know. It's got some holes in it. It's pretty goofy and melodramatic, but the ambition of the film, so the way that it looks, pretty impressive. Some of the performances are pretty good, but also the fact that the film was made at all during
Yeah.
that time period, like somebody had the balls to say, I'm going to make a 4-hour movie and you can't stop me,
Yeah.
and it's going to become the most successful film in history adjusted for inflation. You know, you can go on Wikipedia and look up like what's the film that earned the most, and then what's the film that earned the most adjusted for inflation, like all currency being equal, and it's Gone
Yeah.
with the Wind. So
Yep.
that's pretty amazing that it hasn't been overtaken.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. True. Alrighty. So we're gonna decide for the next podcast topic which films we're gonna watch. But yep, enjoy this movie. I hope that most of you have watched the three films. I would say out of the three films, maybe all about it are the least popular, but
Yeah, probably.
it's still worth watch.
Yeah, that was my
It's
favorite
more
of
than
these.
worth it to watch it.
That
All
was my
right.
favorite of these three, I think.
Yep. Oh,
Mark.
when you mentioned me in the before the podcast that like you just watch it, you didn't have any note for it, and like it you didn't get many other references. I thought that you was confused by this, so
Oh
I'm
no,
glad.
no, the references that I missed are very specific to like
Yeah,
they're the sorts of
yeah,
things that people who are into theater like every day are reading the newspapers or whatever reviews, and what am I trying to say right now? Just people who are obsessed with the theater, people who live and breathe it. Those are the references that I didn't get. I followed the story just
yep,
fine.
yep, yep,
It's an easy story to follow, even though it does have that interesting like narration at the start. You're not sure what's about to happen. The film makes you,
yep,
accept it and believe it when it loops back around. You're like, well, I've already said this, but I was like, whoa,
yep, yep.
they really did it. They really did that. Yeah, it's
Right.
good. It's a fun watch. Yeah,
Yep.
and you're right. We haven't selected what 3 films we're gonna do next, but we will get back to you on that in 2 weeks.
Mhm. Alrighty. See you in 2 weeks then.
Adios.